This is all you deserve.
The shock collar around my 10-year-old daughter's neck wasn't what I expected to find at my homecoming ceremony. I'd been deployed for 8 months, counting down the days until I could hold Lila again, until I could see Aaron's smile, until I could sleep in my own bed without the sound of mortars in the distance. The whole town had gathered at the high school stadium for my surprise welcome home. Yellow ribbons, American flags, the works. Small-town Maine knew how to treat its returning soldiers. But when I scanned the crowd for my family, I found Lila hiding behind the bleachers, her beautiful blonde hair chopped in uneven patches, a black electronic collar fastened around her throat like she was some kind of animal. "Daddy?" Her voice was barely a whisper. "You came back." I dropped to my knees, my dress uniform suddenly feeling like it weighed 1,000 pounds. "Baby, what is this thing?" My fingers trembled as I examined the collar. It was a dog training device, the kind used on aggressive animals. "Mommy's boyfriend made me wear it," she whispered, glancing around nervously. "He said I had to call him father or he'd press the button. It hurts really bad, Daddy, and Mommy said you were a cowardly, weak soldier who might never come home." The world tilted sideways. 8 months of combat in the Middle East, and the real war was waiting for me at home. "Where's your mother, sweetheart?" "Over there, with Brad." Lila pointed toward the crowd where I could see Erin's familiar red hair. She was standing close to a muscular man I didn't recognize, her hand on his arm, laughing at something he'd said. I carefully removed the collar from Lila's neck, my hands shaking with rage. The skin underneath was raw and irritated. Someone had been using this thing regularly. "Daddy, are you okay? You look scary." I forced a smile for my daughter, but inside, something cold and calculating was taking shape. I'd spent 8 months learning how to neutralize threats, how to plan operations, how to make enemies disappear. Apparently, I was going to need those skills at home. "I'm fine, baby, but things are going to change around here. Nobody hurts my little girl." We walked hand in hand toward the crowd. Erin spotted us first, her face cycling through surprise, guilt, and then practiced concern. "Evan, oh my God, you're home." She rushed over, but her embrace felt hollow, performative. "We had no idea you were coming today. What a wonderful surprise." "Is it?" I kept my voice level, but my eyes were on Brad. He was everything I wasn't. Tall, tan, with the kind of muscles that came from a gym instead of carrying gear across desert mountains. He had the easy confidence of a man who'd never been under fire. "This is Brad Kincaid," Erin said, her cheeks flushing. "He's been such a help while you were away. He owns the new fitness center downtown." Brad stepped forward with a practiced smile and an extended hand. "Great to meet you, Evan. Your wife's told me so much about you. Thank you for your service." I looked at his hand but didn't take it. Instead, I held up the shock collar. "Interesting training methods you use, Brad." The color drained from his face. Erin's mouth opened and closed like a fish. "I don't know what you're talking about," Brad said, but his voice cracked slightly. "This was around my daughter's neck. She says you made her call you father." My voice carried across the crowd now, and conversations were starting to stop. People were turning to watch. "Evan, please," Erin hissed. "You're making a scene. People will think you're unstable from the deployment." "Unstable?" I almost laughed. "Lady, you have no idea what unstable looks like yet." Mrs. Dunning, our elderly neighbor, appeared at my elbow. "Evan, honey, I'm so glad you're home. I've been worried sick about little Lila. That man's truck has been in your driveway every night for months, and the screaming—" She shook her head sadly. The crowd was definitely watching now. I could see phones coming out, people starting to record. Good, let them. "Screaming?" I asked. "From the little one. And I saw him dragging her around the yard on that leash thing. I called the police twice, but they said it was a domestic matter." Brad's face was red now. "This is ridiculous. I've been nothing but good to that family." "Show them your neck, Lila," I said gently. My daughter pulled down her collar, revealing the raw, irritated skin where the shock collar had been. A collective gasp went up from the crowd. "Jesus Christ," someone muttered. "That's not what it looks like," Brad stammered. "She's a difficult child, always lying, always getting into trouble. Sometimes you need firm discipline." Wrong thing to say. I stepped closer to him, close enough that only he could hear me. "You put a shock collar on my 10-year-old daughter and made her call you daddy. You shaved her head like she was in a prison camp. You've been sleeping in my bed and playing house with my family while I was under fire overseas." My voice was barely a whisper, but every word hit him like a physical blow. You have no idea what you've started. I stepped back and raised my voice for the crowd. Thank you all for coming out today. It's good to be home. Really good. As we walked away, Lila's small hand in mine, I could hear the murmur of outraged voices behind us. By tomorrow, everyone in town would know what Brad Kincaid had done. That was just the beginning. Aaron caught up with us in the parking lot. Evan, we need to talk. You don't understand the situation. Oh, I understand perfectly. I opened the truck door for Lila, then turned to face my wife. The question is, what are you going to do about it? What do you mean? I mean, you have a choice to make, Aaron, him or us. But I'm not sharing my family with some steroid-pumped coward who tortures children. She glanced back toward Brad, who was surrounded by angry townspeople. It's not that simple. Actually, it is. I climbed into the truck and started the engine. You've got until tomorrow to decide. Choose wisely. As we drove home, Lila curled up against my side like she used to when she was smaller. Daddy, are you going to make the bad man go away? I looked down at my daughter, at her butchered hair, at the marks on her neck, at the fear in her eyes that no child should ever have to carry. Yeah, baby. Daddy's going to make the bad man go away. But as we pulled into our driveway, I realized the bad man wasn't the only problem I was dealing with. The woman who was supposed to protect our daughter had not only failed her, she'd actively participated in her mistreatment. That night, after Lila was asleep, I sat in my kitchen and planned my first civilian operation. 8 months of combat had taught me patience, strategy, and the importance of gathering intelligence before striking. Brad Kincaid and my wife had no idea what they'd awakened, but they were about to find out. The war had come home. The next morning, I drove Lila to school myself. She clung to my hand as we walked to her classroom, and I noticed how the other kids stared at her chopped-up hair. Mrs. Patterson, I said to her teacher, I need to know about any incidents involving my daughter while I was deployed. The middle-aged woman's face tightened. Mr. Brody, I'm so glad you're home. We've been very concerned about Lila. There were several times she came to school with marks, and her behavior changed dramatically about 4 months ago. She became withdrawn, stopped participating in activities. Did anyone report this? We tried. Your wife always had explanations. Lila was acting out, being defiant, needed discipline. And Mr. Kincaid seemed very authoritative when he came to pick her up. He picked her up from school several times. Your wife added him to the authorized list. She hesitated. Mr. Brody, there was one incident where Lila had what looked like burn marks on her arm. When we asked, she said she'd touched a hot stove, but what? They were perfectly round, like someone had pressed something against her skin. The shock collar. The bastard had been using it on her arms, too. After dropping Lila off, I drove to the VFW bar where I knew I'd find Frankie Morrison behind the counter. Frankie was an ex-con who'd found religion and steady work, but he still had connections throughout the town's underbelly. Evan freaking Brody? Frankie's weathered face split into a grin. Heard you made quite an impression at your homecoming yesterday. Word travels fast. Faster when it involves Brad Kincaid getting his comeuppance. That pretty boy's been strutting around town like he owns the place. Frankie poured me a coffee without being asked. What can you tell me about him? More than you want to know, probably. Frankie leaned across the bar. He opened that gym about 6 months ago, right after you deployed. Seemed to have plenty of cash for equipment, renovations. More cash than a new business should have. Where'd the money come from? That's the interesting question. Word is he was dating 3 different married women, all with deployed husbands. Real piece of work. Targeting military wives. My coffee cup cracked in my grip. Names? Sarah Mitchell, whose husband's in Germany. Janet Torres, husband's in Korea. And your Aaron. Frankie's expression darkened. But here's the thing, Evan. The other 2 women broke it off when their husbands came home. Your wife didn't. What do you mean? I mean she's still seeing him. Even after yesterday's little scene. Gina Walsh saw them together at the Riverside Motel this morning. Gina Walsh, Aaron's best friend and the town's biggest gossip. If she was spreading this information, it was either because she wanted to cause trouble or because she was genuinely concerned. There's something else, Frankie continued. You know I keep security cameras around this place, right? Well, I also do some side work installing systems for folks around town. And I installed a system at your house about 2 months ago. Your wife said you'd requested it before deployment, wanted to keep an eye on things while you were gone. I definitely hadn't requested any security system. Do you still have access to the footage? Frankie reached under the bar and pulled out a USB drive. Thought you might ask. This covers the last 2 months. Fair warning, Evan. You're not going to like what you see. I pocketed the drive. Thanks, Frankie. Don't thank me yet. There's more. Brad's been bragging around town about how he's going to handle you. Says you're just another broken soldier who can't adapt to civilian life. He's been telling people you're dangerous, unstable. Is that right? Yeah. And he's got some of the guys from his gym backing his story, spreading rumors that you threatened him yesterday, that you might be suffering from PTSD and could snap at any moment. I had to admire the strategy. Discredit me preemptively, make me look like the unstable veteran who couldn't handle his wife moving on. Classic manipulation. One more thing, Frankie said as I headed for the door. Brad's got a temper, real bad one. I've seen him lose it over stupid crap, someone taking his parking spot, a bartender being too slow with his order. The kind of guy who hits first and thinks later. Good to know. I spent the rest of the morning watching the security footage on my laptop. What I saw made me want to put my fist through the screen. Brad wasn't just staying at my house. He was living there, using my tools, eating my food, sleeping in my bed. But worse than that were the scenes with Lila. I watched him drag her around the yard on a leash attached to that shock collar. I saw him force her to do push-ups in the dirt while he screamed at her like a drill sergeant. I watched my wife stand by and do nothing while this monster terrorized our daughter. In one particularly gut-wrenching scene, I watched Lila try to run into the house to escape him. Brad caught her, activated the shock collar, and held the button down while she collapsed, convulsing. Erin was visible in the background, talking on her phone, completely ignoring her daughter's screams. By the time I finished watching, my hands were shaking with rage. But rage wasn't going to solve this problem. I needed to be smart, methodical. I needed to destroy Brad Kincaid completely. And I needed to do it in a way that wouldn't land me in prison. That afternoon, I drove to Brad's gym. It was a typical small-town fitness center. Lots of chrome and mirrors, loud music, the smell of sweat and desperation. Brad was in the back, spotting some kid on the bench press. I waited until he was alone, then approached. "We need to talk." He looked up from his clipboard, and I could see him calculating his options. We were in public, surrounded by witnesses. He couldn't afford to look weak in front of his customers. "Sure, Evan. What's on your mind?" "My daughter." "Look, I'm sorry if there was some misunderstanding yesterday. Lila's a good kid, but she needed structure. With you gone, someone had to step up and be the man of the house." The man of the house. I let that hang in the air for a moment. Is that what you call torturing a 10-year-old girl? I never tortured anyone. That's a serious accusation. You're right. It is. I pulled out my phone and showed him a screenshot from the security footage, him holding down the shock collar button while Lila writhed on the ground. Want to explain this to the police? Or should I just post it on social media and let the town decide? All the color drained from his face. Where did you get that? Doesn't matter. What matters is what happens next. I stepped closer, lowering my voice. You're going to stay away from my family. All of them. You're going to find somewhere else to live, someone else to play house with. And if I ever see you near my daughter again, you're going to discover exactly what 8 months of combat training taught me about making problems disappear. Are you threatening me? I'm educating you. There's a difference. Brad glanced around the gym, aware that people were starting to notice our conversation. You can't just come in here and what? Protect my family? Watch this. I walked over to the gym's main desk where a young woman was checking in members. Excuse me, could you help me with something? I'm trying to understand how someone gets into the child mistreatment business. Do you need special training, or is it more of a natural talent thing? The girl looked confused. I'm sorry, what? Oh, I'm talking about your boss, Brad Kincaid. He's been using shock collars on children. I was just wondering if that's something he learned here at the gym, or if he picked it up somewhere else. By now, half the gym had stopped what they were doing to listen. Brad was striding over, his face red with anger. That's enough, he hissed. You need to leave. You're absolutely right, I do need to leave, but first. I pulled out my phone again and held it up so everyone could see the screen. I just want to show everyone what Brad's been doing to my 10-year-old daughter while I was deployed overseas. The video played for about 10 seconds, long enough for everyone to see a grown man torturing a small child with an electronic device. The reaction was immediate and visceral. Several people started shouting, others pulled out their phones to record. "That's not what it looks like," Brad said desperately, but his voice was drowned out by the angry crowd. I pocketed my phone and headed for the door. "See you around, Brad." As I walked out, I could hear him trying to explain, trying to control the situation. But it was too late. By evening, that video would be all over social media. By tomorrow, everyone in town would know exactly what kind of man Brad Kincaid really was. Phase 1 complete. The next morning, my phone started ringing at 6 a.m. The first call was from my old Army buddy, Ron Willis. "Dude, I just saw the video. Please tell me you're not planning to do anything stupid." "Define stupid." "Anything that involves you going to prison while that piece of crap walks free." "I'm not going to prison, Ron, but Brad Kincaid is going to wish he'd never met my family." "Evan, I'm serious. I know that look in your voice. I've seen what you can do when you get focused on a target." "Then you know I don't miss." There was a long pause. "What do you need?" That's why I loved Ron. No judgment, no lectures about forgiveness or moving on. Just a simple question about how he could help. Information, surveillance, maybe some technical support. "I'm driving up from Boston today. Give me 6 hours." The second call was from Deputy Sarah Mallory. We'd gone to high school together, and she'd always been straight with me. "Evan, we need to talk. Brad Kincaid filed a complaint this morning, says you threatened him at his gym." "Did he mention the part where he tortured my daughter?" "He says that video is fake, taken out of context. Claims you're suffering from PTSD and making up stories." "Sarah, you've known me since we were kids. Do I seem like the type to fake something like this?" Another pause. "No, but I have to follow procedure. Can you come in this afternoon, just to give your side of the story officially?" "Of course, but Sarah, you might want to talk to Lila's teacher, Mrs. Patterson, and maybe check with the hospital about any suspicious injuries in the past few months." "Already on it. And Evan, off the record, that video made me sick. If it's real, I'll do everything I can to help you." The third call was from Gina Walsh, and that one surprised me. "Evan, I need to see you. There are things about Aaron and Brad that you need to know." "Such as?" "Not over the phone. Meet me at Dunkin' Donuts on Main Street in an hour." Gina was waiting in a corner booth when I arrived, looking nervous and guilty. She'd been Aaron's best friend since high school, the kind of woman who thrived on drama and gossip, but usually stayed out of serious trouble. "I should have called you months ago," she said without preamble. "I should have told you what was happening." "Why didn't you?" "Because Aaron's my friend, and I thought it was just an affair. Married women get lonely when their husbands deploy. It happens. But then I saw what he was doing to Lila." "You saw it and did nothing?" "I tried to talk to Aaron. I told her it was wrong, told her to make him stop. But she said Lila was just being dramatic, that Brad was teaching her discipline and respect." "Discipline?" The word tasted bitter in my mouth. "There's more. Brad's been taking money from your joint accounts, thousands of dollars. Aaron's been giving him access to everything, your savings, your military pay, even the college fund you set up for Lila." "How much?" "At least 15,000 that I know of, maybe more." I felt something cold settle in my stomach. "What else?" "He's been dealing illegal substances out of the gym. Nothing major, just steroids and diet pills, but it's enough to get him in serious trouble if someone reported it." "How do you know all this?" Gina looked even more uncomfortable. "Because I've been sleeping with him too." That stopped me cold. "What?" "I know how it sounds, but he's very persuasive, very charming when he wants to be. He told me Aaron was getting boring, that he was thinking about ending it with her. He said we could be together if I helped him with a few things." "What kind of things?" "Information, mostly. About you, about when you were coming home, about your finances. He wanted to know everything about your military service, your training, whether you had any psychological problems. You've been spying on my family for him." "Yes," she started crying. "I'm so sorry, Evan. I thought it was just harmless gossip. I didn't know he was hurting Lila. I swear I didn't know." I studied her face, trying to determine if she was telling the truth or if this was another manipulation. "What changed your mind?" "Yesterday, after the scene at the gym, he called me. He was furious, said you'd humiliated him in front of everyone. He wanted me to help him get revenge." "What kind of revenge?" "He wanted me to tell people you'd threatened to end him. He wanted me to say I'd seen you acting erratically, maybe drinking too much or using substances. He thought if he could make you look unstable enough, he could get a restraining order against you. And you said no." I said I'd think about it. But then I went home and really looked at that video for the first time. I mean, really looked at it. She wiped her eyes. That little girl was screaming, Evan. She was begging him to stop, and he just kept pressing that button, and Aaron was just standing there. So what do you want from me? I want to help. I want to make this right. Why should I trust you? Because I have recordings. That got my attention. What kind of recordings? Brad likes to talk after closeness. He brags about things, tells stories. I started recording our conversations a few weeks ago just in case things went bad between us. She pulled out her phone. I've got him admitting to taking your money, talking about how he's been training Lila, even bragging about how easy it was to manipulate Aaron. Let me hear it. She played a brief clip. Brad's voice was unmistakable. The kid's finally learning respect. A few jolts from that collar, and she'll do whatever I tell her, and her mother's so desperate for attention, she'll let me do anything as long as I keep telling her she's beautiful. There's hours of this stuff, Gina said. Him talking about other women he's scammed, admitting to selling pills, even discussing plans to get you declared mentally incompetent so Aaron could take full custody of Lila. I sat back in my chair, processing this information. Gina Walsh had just handed me enough ammunition to destroy Brad Kincaid completely. The question was whether I could trust her or if this was an elaborate trap. What do you want in return? Nothing. I just want him gone, and I want to be able to look at myself in the mirror again. Okay, here's what's going to happen. You're going to keep seeing Brad, keep recording him, but you're also going to start feeding him false information. What kind of false information? Tell him I'm planning to leave town, that I can't handle the stress of what happened. Tell him I'm drinking heavily, maybe seeing a therapist, make him think he's winning. And then? And then we're going to destroy him so completely that he'll never hurt another family again. Gina nodded, looking relieved. What about Erin? What about her? Are you going to forgive her? Try to work things out. I thought about my wife standing in the background while Brad tortured our daughter. I thought about her giving him access to our money, our home, our life. I thought about her calling me weak and cowardly while I was under fire overseas. Gina, some things can't be forgiven. Some lines, once you cross them, you can't come back. So what happens to her? The same thing that happens to Brad. She loses everything. That afternoon, Ron Willis arrived with a truck full of surveillance equipment and a grim expression. Jesus, Evan, I saw the whole video online. How long was this going on? Months, maybe since a few weeks after I deployed. And your wife knew. She participated. Ron was quiet for a long moment. We'd served together for 6 years, been through firefights and IED attacks, and the kind of situations that show you who a person really is. He knew I didn't exaggerate or make accusations lightly. What's the plan? Total destruction, but we do it smart and we do it legal. Define legal. We don't touch him physically, we don't break any laws. We just make sure everyone in town knows exactly who Brad Kincaid is and what he's done. And your wife? Same treatment. Ron nodded grimly. Okay. Let's get to work. We spent the rest of the afternoon setting up surveillance equipment around town. Ron had contacts from his security business, ways of monitoring Brad's movements without breaking any laws. We placed cameras at the gym, the motel where he'd been meeting married women, even his apartment. This is some serious gear, I observed as Ron calibrated a directional microphone. I may have borrowed a few things from my old contractor buddies. Turns out a lot of guys in private security are really interested in child mistreatment cases. By evening, we had a complete surveillance network in place. We could monitor Brad's movements, record his conversations, and document everything he did. More importantly, we could anticipate his next moves. He's going to escalate, Ron warned. Guys like this, when they feel cornered, they get desperate, and desperate people do stupid things. I'm counting on it. Just remember, Evan, we're not in the Middle East anymore. You can't just eliminate problems here. Who says I want to eliminate him? I smiled grimly. Death would be too easy. I want him to live with the consequences of what he's done. I want him to wake up every morning knowing that everyone in town knows what kind of man he really is. And if he tries to run, then we make sure he can't run far enough. As we finished setting up the equipment, my phone buzzed with a text from Aaron. We need to talk. Meet me at home tonight after Lila goes to bed. I showed the message to Ron. Could be a trap. Could be, but I doubt it. She's probably trying to find some way to salvage the situation. What are you going to tell her? The truth, that she made her choice, and now she has to live with the consequences. And if she threatens to take Lila, then she's going to discover that threatening a man's child is a very dangerous thing to do. That night, after I'd tucked Lila into bed and read her 3 stories to make up for lost time, I sat in my living room and waited for my wife to come home. When she finally arrived, she looked nervous and guilty, but also defiant. "Evan, we need to talk about what happened yesterday." "I'm listening." "You embarrassed me in front of the entire town. You made me look like a terrible mother." "Did I? Or did I just show everyone what kind of mother you actually are?" She flinched at that, but pressed on. "Brad's not a bad man. He's been good to Lila, given her structure and discipline." Structure and discipline. I pulled out my laptop and opened the security footage. "Is this what you call structure and discipline?" I played the video of Brad shocking Lila while she begged him to stop. Erin watched with a stricken expression, but she didn't deny it. She was being defiant. She needed to learn respect. She needed to learn respect. I repeated her words slowly. "Erin, that's our daughter, our 10-year-old daughter, and you let that monster torture her because she was defiant." "It wasn't torture. It was discipline." "Really? Then you won't mind if I show this video to Child Protective Services. Or maybe the police. Or maybe I'll just post it online and let every parent in town decide whether shocking a child with a dog collar counts as discipline." "You can't do that. I'm her mother." "And I'm her father. The father who was overseas under fire while you were playing house with a predator." Erin's composure finally cracked. "You don't understand. You were gone for 8 months. 8 months. I was alone, trying to raise a difficult child, trying to keep everything together. So you decided to shack up with the first psychopath who paid attention to you? Brad's not a psychopath. He's strong, decisive. He knows how to handle problems. By torturing children, by doing what needs to be done," she was shouting now. "You were never strong enough to discipline Lila properly. You always gave in to her, let her walk all over you. Brad taught her respect." I stared at my wife, really seeing her for the first time in years. The selfishness, the narcissism, the complete inability to accept responsibility for her actions. How had I never noticed it before? "Here's what's going to happen," I said quietly. "Brad is going to disappear from our lives. Completely, and you're going to choose him or us. That's not fair. You can't just come home and expect everything to go back to the way it was." "You're right. I can't. Because after what I've seen, after what you've allowed to happen to our daughter, nothing will ever be the same." "What's that supposed to mean?" "It means you crossed a line, Erin. You let someone torture our child. You stood by and watched while she screamed and begged for help. Some things can't be forgiven." "Are you threatening me?" "I'm educating you. Just like I educated Brad. You have 24 hours to end things with him and start acting like a mother. If you choose him over Lila, then you'll live with the consequences." "And what consequences are those?" "The same ones Brad's about to face. Total destruction." She stared at me for a long moment, and I could see her trying to calculate her options, trying to figure out if I was bluffing. "You wouldn't dare." "Try me." The next morning, I got my answer. Erin was gone, and so were half her clothes. She'd left a note on the kitchen table. "I can't live with your threats and accusations. Brad and I are going away for a few days to think things over. Don't try to follow us." I showed the note to Lila over breakfast. "Is Mommy coming back?" she asked quietly. "I don't know, sweetheart. Do you want her to?" Lila thought about it for a long moment. "Only if the bad man goes away forever." "Well then, I guess we better make sure the bad man goes away forever." "How are we going to do that, Daddy?" I smiled at my daughter, my brave, resilient little girl who'd survived months of mistreatment and was still able to trust me to protect her. "Don't worry about that, baby. Daddy's got a plan." Ron's surveillance network paid off faster than I'd expected. By noon, we knew exactly where Brad and Erin had gone. The Riverside Motel, the same place Gina had seen them before. They weren't trying to hide. They were making a statement. "Arrogant bastard," Ron muttered as he adjusted the long-range camera. "He actually thinks he's won." "Let him think that. Arrogant people make mistakes." My phone buzzed with a call from Gina. "Evan, I just heard from Brad. He wants to meet tonight." "Where?" "The old textile mill on River Road. He says he has a proposition for you." The abandoned mill had been closed for 15 years, a perfect place for a private conversation, or an ambush. "Did he say what kind of proposition?" "He wants to buy you out." He's willing to pay you $50,000 to sign over your parental rights and leave town permanently. $50,000. I almost laughed. He's going to pay me with my own money. What do you want me to tell him? Tell him I'll be there at 9 o'clock. Tell him I'm interested in hearing what he has to say. Evan, this feels like a trap. It is a trap. The question is, who's trapping whom? That afternoon, I had my official interview with Deputy Mallory. She was professional but sympathetic, and I could tell she believed my story. We've opened a formal investigation into the child mistreatment allegations, she said, and we're looking into the financial irregularities Gina Walsh reported. What about Brad's complaint against me? What complaint? We never received any complaint from Brad Kincaid. I raised an eyebrow. He told me he filed one yesterday. Nope, no record of it. Funny thing is, we have received about 30 complaints about him since that video went online. Seems a lot of people in town have had negative experiences with Mr. Kincaid, such as harassment, intimidation, suspected illegal substance dealing, fraud. Nothing we could prosecute before, but now that people are talking, she shrugged. Let's just say his legal problems are just beginning. And if he tries to leave town, well, we can't stop him from traveling, but if he's planning to take a minor child across state lines without the father's consent, that would be kidnapping. Even if the mother consents, especially if the mother consents. You're still married, you still have parental rights. If your wife tries to disappear with Lila, she'll be committing a felony. That evening, I prepared for my meeting with Brad like I was planning a military operation. Ron would be positioned outside the mill with recording equipment and a clear line of sight. I wore a wire, carried a backup recording device, and made sure everything was legal and admissible in court. Remember, Ron said as we drove to the mill, this isn't the Middle East. You can't just eliminate the problem. I don't want to eliminate him. I want to humiliate him. What if he gets violent? Then I defend myself. But somehow I don't think Brad Kincaid has the stomach for real violence. He's a bully and a coward. When bullies get cornered, they usually fold. The textile mill was a massive brick building surrounded by rusted chain-link fence. Brad's truck was already there when I arrived, parked near the main entrance. I could see him pacing inside through the broken windows. I walked in alone, my hands visible, moving slowly and deliberately. Brad was waiting in what used to be the main production floor, surrounded by abandoned machinery and debris. Evan, thanks for coming. What do you want, Brad? I want to make this easy for everyone involved. You're a reasonable man, a soldier. You understand how negotiations work. I'm listening. Your marriage is over. We both know that. Erin's made her choice. And frankly, she's happier with me than she ever was with you. Is that right? It is. And let's be honest about Lila. You've been gone for 8 months. She barely knows you anymore. She's bonded with me, sees me as a father figure. I thought about my daughter hiding behind the bleachers with a shock collar around her neck, but I kept my expression neutral. So, what are you proposing? $50,000. Cash. In exchange, you sign over your parental rights, agree to an uncontested divorce, and leave town. Erin gets the house, I get the family, you get a fresh start somewhere else. $50,000. I pretended to consider it. That's a lot of money. It is. More than enough to start over somewhere new. Maybe somewhere your military skills would be more appreciated. Where would the money come from? I've been successful in business. I can afford to be generous. Generous with my own money, you mean? His smile faltered slightly. I don't know what you're talking about. The $15,000 you've stolen from our joint accounts. The college fund you emptied. The military pay you've been intercepting. I haven't stolen anything. Erin gave me access to those accounts. Erin doesn't have the legal right to give you access to my military pay. That's a federal crime, Brad. You can't prove anything. Actually, I can. I pulled out my phone and played one of Gina's recordings. Brad's voice filled the empty mill. The stupid bastard has no idea how much money I've taken. By the time he gets home, there won't be anything left. Brad's face went white. Where did you get that? Does it matter? The point is, I have hours of recordings. You admitting to theft, to child mistreatment, to fraud, enough to put you in prison for a very long time. Those recordings are illegal. You can't use them in court. Maybe not, but I can post them online. I can send them to every person in town. I can make sure everyone knows exactly who Brad Kincaid really is. He started pacing again, more agitated now. What do you want? I want you gone, completely. I want you out of my house, away from my family, and out of this town. And if I refuse, then tomorrow morning, every person in this town is going to wake up to an email containing video footage of you torturing my daughter, audio recordings of you admitting to multiple felonies, and a detailed financial breakdown of everything you've stolen from my family. You're bluffing. Am I? You want to test that theory? Brad stopped pacing and turned to face me. For the first time since I'd met him, I could see real anger in his eyes instead of calculated manipulation. You think you're so smart, don't you? The big war hero coming home to save the day? But you have no idea what you're dealing with. Enlighten me. I own this town now. I've got dirt on half the married women, connections with people you don't want to mess with. You think you can just walk in here and take back what's mine? What's yours? I stepped closer. You mean my wife, my daughter, my house, my money? I mean everything I've built while you were playing soldier overseas. You built it by torturing a 10-year-old girl. I built it by being strong when you were weak. By being here when you weren't. By giving your family what they needed. What they needed was protection from monsters like you. Brad's composure finally snapped completely. You want to know what your precious daughter needed? She needed discipline. She needed to learn respect. She was a spoiled brat who thought she could do whatever she wanted. So you put a shock collar on her. So I taught her consequences, something you obviously never bothered to do. And my wife, what did she need? She needed a real man, someone who could make decisions, take control, handle problems, not some broken soldier with PTSD. Is that what you think I am? Broken? I think you're exactly what every military wife fears her husband will become. Damaged goods. I smiled at him, and something in my expression made him take a step backward. You know what, Brad? You're absolutely right. I am damaged goods. 8 months of combat will do that to a person. You learn things in war that you can't unlearn. You develop skills that don't translate well to civilian life. What's your point? My point is that you've made a serious miscalculation. You thought you were dealing with some broken soldier who couldn't adapt to civilian life. But what you're actually dealing with is a highly trained combat veteran who knows exactly how to neutralize threats. Are you threatening me? I'm educating you. Again, you see, Brad, there are 2 ways this can end. The easy way, where you disappear quietly and never contact my family again. Or the hard way, where I systematically destroy every aspect of your pathetic life. You can't touch me. I know people. I have connections. Really? Let's test that theory. I pulled out my phone and sent a pre-written text message. Within seconds, Brad's phone started buzzing with notifications. What did you just do? I just sent those recordings to every contact in your phone. Your customers, your business partners, your other girlfriends. Everyone you know now has a complete record of what kind of man you really are. Brad frantically pulled out his phone, watching as message after message appeared. His face cycled through disbelief, rage, and, finally, fear. You bastard, you've ruined everything. No, Brad, you ruined everything the moment you put that collar on my daughter. I'm just making sure everyone knows about it. This isn't over. Yes, it is. Because in about 5 minutes, those same recordings are going to be posted on every social media platform in town. By tomorrow morning, there won't be a person within 50 miles who doesn't know what you've done. I'll sue you for defamation. With what lawyer? What money? By the time I'm done, you won't have either. Brad stood there for a long moment, realizing that his entire world had just collapsed around him. Then he did exactly what I'd expected him to do. He tried to run, but Ron was waiting outside, along with Deputy Mallory and 2 other officers. Brad Kincaid, Mallory said as they cuffed him. You're under arrest for child mistreatment, theft, and fraud. You have the right to remain silent. As they led him away, Brad looked back at me with pure hatred. This isn't over, Brody. I'll get out. And when you do, I'll be waiting. And next time I won't be nearly as generous. The next morning, I found Erin sitting in her car in my driveway, crying. She'd seen the news about Brad's arrest, seen the recordings that were now circulating throughout the town. Evan, we need to talk. No, we don't. Please. I know I made mistakes, but we can work this out. For Lila's sake. For Lila's sake? I looked at my wife, this woman who'd stood by while someone tortured our child. Erin, you lost the right to use our daughter as an excuse the moment you let that monster put a collar on her. I was confused, lonely. I made bad choices. You made evil choices. There's a difference. So what happens now? Now you live with the consequences, just like Brad. What does that mean? It means everyone in town knows what kind of mother you are. It means you'll never get custody of Lila. It means you'll spend the rest of your life knowing that when it mattered most, you chose a toxic man over your own daughter. You can't just destroy my life like this. I didn't destroy your life, Aaron. You did that all by yourself. I just made sure everyone could see it. She drove away that morning, and I never saw her again. I heard later that she'd moved to another state, trying to start over somewhere people didn't know her story. But the internet is forever, and small towns have long memories. 6 months later, Brad Kincaid was sentenced to 5 years in prison for child mistreatment, theft, and fraud. The judge called his crimes particularly heinous and noted that his lack of remorse made him a danger to the community. Erin lost her parental rights in a custody hearing that lasted exactly 20 minutes. The judge took one look at the evidence and declared that she was unfit to parent a goldfish, let alone a child. Gina Walsh testified at both trials, her recordings providing crucial evidence. She moved away after everything was over, but not before apologizing to Lila personally. "I should have protected you," she told my daughter. "I'm sorry I didn't." Lila, resilient as always, simply nodded and said, "It's okay, my daddy protected me." Deputy Mallory was promoted to sheriff, partly based on her handling of the case. She made sure that Brad's associates at the gym were thoroughly investigated, leading to several more arrests for illegal substance dealing and fraud. Ron Willis moved to Maine permanently, opening a security consulting business. He specialized in helping military families, and he never charged veterans for his services. Mrs. Dunning became something of a local hero for speaking up about what she'd witnessed. The town council named a small park after her, recognizing her as a citizen who had the courage to stand up for a child in need. Frankie Morrison's bar became the unofficial headquarters for local veterans. He never charged active duty or retired military for their first drink, and he kept a photo on the wall of Lila and me at our first baseball game after everything was over. As for Lila and me, we rebuilt our relationship slowly but steadily. She started therapy to deal with the trauma of what Brad had done to her, and I started therapy to deal with my anger about it. We both healed day by day. Her hair grew back, thick and beautiful. The marks on her neck faded completely. Most importantly, the fear in her eyes disappeared, replaced by the confidence and joy that every child deserves. 1 year after Brad's sentencing, Lila came home from school with a question. "Daddy, some kids at school were asking about what happened with Mom and Brad. They wanted to know if you're a hero." "What did you tell them?" "I told them you're not a hero. You're just my dad, and that's better than being a hero." I hugged my daughter, this amazing little person who'd survived a nightmare and come out stronger. "You know what, baby? You're absolutely right. Heroes are for comic books and movies. Real life is about family and protecting the people you love and making sure that bad people face consequences for their actions." "Is that what you did to Brad? Made sure he faced consequences?" "That's exactly what I did." "Good. He deserved it." That night, after Lila was asleep, I sat on my porch and thought about everything that had happened. I'd returned from war expecting to find peace at home, but instead I'd found a different kind of battlefield. I'd learned that sometimes the most dangerous enemies aren't the ones firing at you from across a desert. Sometimes they're the ones who smile while they torture your child, who sleep in your bed while you're overseas defending your country, who try to destroy your family from the inside. But I'd also learned that the skills that make you a good soldier, patience, planning, the ability to identify and neutralize threats, those skills work just as well in civilian life when someone threatens the people you love. Brad Kincaid had thought he was dealing with a broken soldier, someone he could manipulate and intimidate. He'd been wrong. He'd been dealing with a father who would do whatever it took to protect his child. Erin had thought she could choose her lover over her daughter and face no consequences. She'd been wrong, too. They'd both learned that actions have consequences, that choices matter, and that some lines, once crossed, can never be uncrossed. I never considered myself a hero. Heroes are people who do extraordinary things in extraordinary circumstances. What I did was ordinary. I protected my family. Any father worth the name would have done the same thing. But as I sat there in the darkness, listening to the sound of my daughter sleeping safely in her room, I realized something important. I didn't need to be a hero. I just needed to be a father. And that was exactly what I was. 2 years later, Brad Kincaid was released from prison early for good behavior. He lasted exactly 3 days in town before leaving permanently. Apparently, small towns have long memories, and nobody was interested in giving him a second chance. The last I heard, he was working at a gas station in another state, living alone, his reputation preceding him wherever he went. The internet is forever, and his crimes would follow him for the rest of his life. Erin tried to contact Lila on her 16th birthday, sending a card and a letter asking for forgiveness. Lila read the letter once, then threw it away. Some people don't deserve second chances, she told me. Some things can't be forgiven. My daughter had learned the same lesson I'd learned that day at the homecoming ceremony, that sometimes the people who are supposed to protect you are the ones who hurt you most. But she'd also learned that there are people who will fight for you, who will never give up on you, who will make sure you're safe no matter what. On the day Lila graduated high school as valedictorian, I thought about how different our lives might have been if I hadn't come home when I did, if I hadn't seen that shock collar around her neck, if I hadn't decided to fight back. But I did come home. I did see what was happening, and I did fight back. Not with violence, not with illegal actions, but with patience and planning and the absolute determination to protect my child from the monsters who had invaded our lives. In her graduation speech, Lila talked about resilience, about overcoming adversity, about the importance of standing up for what's right even when it's difficult. My father taught me that heroes aren't people with superpowers, she said. Heroes are people who do the right thing when it matters most, who protect the people they love, and who never give up even when the odds are against them. She looked right at me when she said it, and I felt prouder than I'd ever felt in my life. After the ceremony, as we walked to the car together, Lila asked me one final question. Dad, do you ever regret what you did to Brad and Mom? I thought about it for a moment. Do you? No. They got exactly what they deserved. Then neither do I. As we drove home that night, I realized that the war I'd fought overseas was nothing compared to the war I'd fought at home. But I'd won both of them, and more importantly, I'd saved the only thing that really mattered. My daughter. Brad Kincaid and Erin had learned a hard lesson about consequences. They'd discovered that when you threaten a man's child, when you torture an innocent little girl, when you betray the most sacred trust that exists between a parent and child, you don't get to walk away unscathed. They'd learned that some fathers will go to war for their children, and they'd learned that when those fathers come home, they bring their skills with them. I'd kept my promise to Lila that day at the homecoming ceremony. I'd made the bad man go away. I'd made sure he could never hurt her again. And I'd done it all without pulling a trigger, without breaking a law, without becoming the monster they'd tried to make me out to be. I'd simply made sure that the truth came out and that justice was served. Sometimes that's all it takes. No more heroes, just consequences.